Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential, chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. So if you haven't signed up to our PEP list to receive a recap email about this week's shows, make sure you head over to performancepodcasts.com. That's podcasts with an S at the end of it. So make sure you remember that. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to our show via iTunes, you can also do that at performancepodcasts.com/iTunes. Or if you prefer to use Stitcher, you can do the same thing at performancepodcast.com/Stitcher. And remember, we have new episodes coming out every Monday and Thursday morning, so you can grab those then. Lastly, if you want to keep up with everything that we do at SatoriPrime, you can always head over to our main site, SatoriPrime.com, and roam around. We have a ton of free content that we constantly update. And if any of you are looking for some mentorship around your marketing efforts, and I'm talking specifically about Facebook paid marketing on how you can use that to double, triple, or even quadruple your business, then we do actually have a couple of masterminds we run that can absolutely transform your marketing efforts in less than 90 days. So you can check those out by applying to see if you're a fit for one of them at SatoriPrime.com/mastermind. And with that, let's kick off today's show. Welcome, my friends, to another Performance Enhancing Podcast. And today's guest is Jayson Gaignard. Jayson Gaignard is the creator of Mastermind Talks, probably one of, if not the premier conferences for entrepreneurs. It's limited, invite only, and very expensive, roughly about $3,500 per ticket. But it's from everyone that's gone and from the quality of speakers, honestly, one of the best events out there today. So he's going to obviously share with you how he built Mastermind Talks and how he started it kind of very grassroots by doing dinners. So you're going to learn a little bit about that. And then we're also going to cover his massive failure that put him $250,000 in debt and how he got out of it. A sneaky little tactic that he used to deal with banks when he was going through the shitter. The downfall of being a control freak or having control run your business, and the magical 84,000 choice that created basically Mastermind Talks and how that led to him launching his first event. So we'll cover all of that in part one. So enjoy the interview with Jayson Gaignard. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I can't believe I have him here finally. His name is Jayson Gaignard, and he runs, like I told you guys before, probably the premier networking event for the high-level entrepreneur, and he's here with us. Welcome, Jayson.
I'm grateful you gave me the stage. Thank you for having me.
The stage is yours.
I hope I live up to that introduction. I will say that, though. I hope I live.
So, Jayson, I didn't tell him a lot about you. Why don't you just kind of tell him a little bit about your story and your mission and what you're trying to create, and then we'll kind of delve into all this other stuff after.
Sure. Yeah. So I started Mastermind Talks. I'll go through the whole story. It's pretty quick. I dropped out of high school, started a service-based business, realized that service-based businesses are hard to scale. I pivoted to an online product business, which I grew to about $6-7 million over 4 years with no outside investments. I was living my model of success, which was the whole 4-hour work week. I was a huge fan of Tim's work at the time. And, I was doing what I want, when I want, wherever I wanted. With all that money and all that free time, you start asking yourself questions like, why am I here? Will I be remembered? How many people show up to my funeral? And I simply wasn't happy with the answers I was giving myself at the time. Wow. And I also became clear on that same time that I was making 22 times national average income. And in a business setting, that's obviously oftentimes I'd be celebrated, But to me, it was bothersome because I'm like, I know I'm not 22 times happier than the average male. I'm not 22 times healthier. 2 years prior to that, when I was 23, I had kidney complications because of stress. So consciously, I decided to sell my business. Subconsciously, I saw it a bit as a source of pain and started to detach myself from it. And over time became comfortable with the idea of scaling it down to zero. So that was going to be probably about a year-long process. We had about 20 some odd employees and 2 retail stores and the e-commerce property and stuff like that. And while scaling it down, unfortunately, 2 things happened that were beyond my control that landed me $250,000 in debt, which was August of 2012, which was quote unquote, I guess, my rock bottom to date.
Okay. To date. I love that.
You never know, dude. It's a roller coaster, man.
That's right. I like that you said that.
But definitely learned a lot from that. I mean, one of the biggest things is the importance of your health. Because mentally I knew I had the capacity to pull myself out because I've made more money than that in the past, even though, it's pretty scary when you have a business almost doing $1 million a month sometimes, and that cash flow just stopping. It's a pretty kind of scary proposition. So I knew I had the mental capacity to pull myself out, but I didn't have the energy to support myself. Like most entrepreneurs, I built my business at the expense of my health, and I was 72 pounds heavier than I am now. Wow. And it was like having a Ferrari for a brain with no gas in the tank. So getting my health back on track was the first thing I needed to do before trying to start a new business and that kind of stuff. Plus I had a 6-month-old daughter at the time, which was a whole nother bucket of problems at that point in time. So love her to death now, but from a timing perspective, I was getting married, had a 6-month-old daughter, $250,000 in debt was not a good place to start. So,
wow. But sometimes the best place, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you learn, I mean, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think that's
right. Wayne Dyer has this great line. He goes, you can only, like if I told someone to jump with their feet here and just jump as high as you can with your feet straight, you're not going that high. Right. But if you really bend your knees, get super, super low and then spring back up, you're going to a whole new height. Sure. So you can only get to your highest heights from your lowest lows.
100%. Yeah. And I learned a lot in that process. I mean, oftentimes for people to make change in their life, like drastic change, there has to be a certain kind of threshold of pain. And when I was $250,000 in debt and I had all that stuff going on, I can assure you I was painful in several areas and I knew things needed to change. I mean, one of them being just frivolous with money. I never respected money. It came so easily to me. Yeah. It was ridiculous. And I had no respect for it. Didn't follow my numbers whatsoever. And conversely, now in my business, I am on top of everything. I'm not a super Jedi in that space yet, but I knew that I was able to identify that as a weak point. And I have 2 mentors who I surround myself with who are just phenomenal at it. And just through osmosis, I'm kind of picking it up as I go along. So, so I didn't know what kind of business I was going to do next. I had a pretty good skill set with marketing and e-commerce, but I knew I didn't want to end up in the same type of business again, where I just pursued something for the sake of financial returns and end up unfulfilled, which was pretty scary. So somebody actually posted on Facebook that they were giving away a ticket to go see Seth Godin in New York. They had an extra ticket and whoever wanted it could take it. So I had no other obligations at the time. So I jumped at the opportunity, went down there, had no clue what it was going to be about. Always been a huge fan of Seth's though. So just wanted to participate in one of his intimate environments. And the theme of his little workshop was the connection economy and how there's huge value connecting like-minded individuals. Yep. And at the time, I'm like, there's no group as disconnected as entrepreneurs really, because everybody's working in their own little businesses and stuff like that. So I came back and started doing these things called mastermind dinners, where I'd invite 6 to 8 entrepreneurs who didn't know each other and would facilitate connecting them over dinner. And the first one I did, I almost canceled 2 hours prior because I'm like, nobody's going to see value in this. They're going to think I wasted their time. And it's funny looking back because when I was successful in business, I used to have people who were, dabbling with entrepreneurship or wanted to become an entrepreneur. And I'd be like, come on, just grow some, whatever you got to grow.
You can say it
happened, right? But I had those fears built up in me again and stuff like that. And because it was 2 hours prior, I couldn't cancel it just out of integrity. I didn't want to be that guy, especially since I was the one planning the dinner or hosting the dinner. So decided to go through with it. Turned out to be a huge success. Conversation lasted 4.5 hours and didn't skip a beat. But I also got clarity at that dinner that connecting entrepreneurs was something I want to do, or connecting people in general was something I want to do to some capacity for the rest of my life. And not necessarily as a business, because I mean, even to this day, I don't charge anybody to attend my dinners. But I just saw so much value being created that I want to continue on with them. And then, I was $250,000 in debt at the time. I was spending $700-800 a dinner to host. So a lot of people probably would have thought I was crazy. And now looking back, it was a little crazy. But at the time I was considering bankruptcy. I'm like, I don't know where rock bottom is for me financially. So my reasoning was that the bank could take my car, they could take whatever measly assets I have left, but they can't take my relationships. Yeah. Investing in my relationships was the safest investment I could make. And kept on doing the dinners, did that for a few months, and then had an opportunity to do an event with Tim Ferriss. There's a little interesting story there where I had to raise $84,000 to buy 4,000 books, but he's a good friend of mine, and I jumped at the opportunity, decided to do an event. So it was an opportunity I saw to do what I do in these dinners, but on a larger scale. Was planning just to do the one event and put 100 amazing entrepreneurs in a room and break even. That was the goal. And if I could break even, put 100 amazing entrepreneurs in a room, I just added 100 amazing entrepreneurs to my network. And first event turned out to be a huge success. So decided to do a second event to prove that the first one wasn't a fluke. The second event was a huge success. So I'm doing the third one in Napa Valley in April.
Nice. So a couple of things. I want to just go back through the story. August 12th, 2012. Yeah. What exactly happened?
So it's two things. People normally don't ask this, so I'm trying to piece it all together again. So there's two things that happened. One, and these are two great mistakes for people to learn from. One is I put all my eggs in one basket, in the sense that when business is good, general rule of thumb is extend as much credit as you can for a rainy day, right? Never did that. So what I used to do, the business I was in was we would purchase inventory and sell it on the back end to pay off the credit card. And we had an American Express at the time. We put sometimes $500,000 a month on our American Express. We just had this money machine where we'd buy and sell and buy and sell.
What was the product, by the way?
Concert tickets. So we had a ticketing company which resold concert tickets. So we had 2 retail stores in Toronto and an e-commerce property and stuff like that. We were the second largest wholesaler in Canada. So we were behind the scenes for a few years, where we just provided our tickets through like StubHub and eBay and all those big ticketing websites, because they don't stock really any of their own inventory. And then we decided to go retail front with our stores and e-commerce and that kind of stuff. So very much a cash flow business. So one day, for some reason, one of their new account execs or something was looking at our account, and they saw there was a weird kind of payment process. We just kept on paying it in these kind of sporadic times. And he saw a lot of the SKUs were the same in the receipt. So, and it was a personal card. And American Express, as long as you're on good terms, they just keep extending credit. Yeah. So basically, we were doing almost $500,000 a month sometimes on with American Express, and whoever was looking at our account decided to put our account on hold because he's like, it looks weird and it looks like you're using this for business purposes, which it was. And I didn't have access to any line of credits or anything like that. So I was just doing everything with that American Express. So they put it on hold, which kept us from buying more inventory to pay off the credit card. So it stopped our machine. So I'm like, we owed like $150K or something like that. And with American Express, they don't mess around. If you don't pay by the end of the month, you're done. Yeah. So it's very different than like traditional credit cards. So I was like, you know what? I've been through worse. I'll figure this out. We'll make it work. Well, lo and behold, 2 weeks later, this is taking us into mid-August now. We had a call from a merchant services provider, and I don't want to name them for slander reasons, but basically we were with them for 4 or 5 years. When we originally applied for their services, we were a personal concierge firm. That was my first business, which was running errands for people. And that actually turned into the ticketing business because when people thought of the word personal concierge, they thought of a hotel concierge. And when they thought of a hotel concierge, they thought of concert tickets. And being a young entrepreneur at the time, like I wanted to be everything to everyone. So I was like, exactly. So I'm like, I'll find concert tickets. So we started stocking our own little inventory, became bigger and bigger, and then started to eclipse the personal concierge side. And it just grew to this great company. Well, our merchant services processor was like, well, we consider your business a medium risk business. And they already had some of our money in a reserve account. And reserve account is in case that, you go bankrupt tomorrow, the credit cards that you've charged, they can be refunded by the merchant services provider, and that they're not left holding back.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had maybe 100 and something grand in that reserve account, which basically no interest, nothing. It's just they hold that money. And the only way to get it back is to close your account and wait 6 months. So we were cool with that. But then he's like, you know what, whoever assessed your account originally did it wrong, and we need to hold more money in a reserve account. So I was like, all right, well, let's talk about this. And he's like, well, we basically need to put your account on 100% reserve. So 98% of my business is done through credit cards. So virtually every penny that was coming in was going into a reserve account that I couldn't touch for 6 months after I closed.
Oh my God.
So basically eliminating my cash flow overnight. And we lasted, it doesn't take too long before you run out of cash and start hitting some brick walls and start burning some bridges. We lasted about 7 weeks. And that was, then I threw a Hail Mary and ended up getting some of it released, which I can actually share this. This actually may be of value when you're dealing with a big company, especially a bank who won't listen to you. So what I did was I was dealing with this rep, and he's like, nope, sorry, we can't do anything. Basically eliminating my cash flow. And I knew with American Express, I was already up, the creek with them because I had no cash coming in. So I was like, dude, this is crazy. So I ended up finding out the email structure for the bank. So it was first name dot last name at blah, blah, blah bank.com. So I looked up everybody who's in the board of advisors, everybody who's in head of PR, communications, customer service, the bank ombudsman. And I emailed the guy and I CC'd everybody else. And I put in the subject title of the email, I was in the Bahamas 3 days before getting married and literally like days away from being bankrupt. Like, I'm like, I don't know what's next.
Wow.
The subject title of the email was XYZ Bank is 6 days away from making me bankrupt. So I was thinking of like a title that would look good on like, a newspaper or something like that, just to get them thinking. And in the email, I just stated, what happened. And I wasn't threatening in the email, but I said, this is an opportunity for your bank to be proactive instead of reactive. And I sent that email within like maybe an hour or two. I started getting some emails back from some execs. They're like, we're looking into this right away, blah, blah, blah. They released some of the money. So I didn't have to wait the full 6 months, but it was a small portion of that money. And, but by then, the business was done. I already burned bridges and, I don't have like outstanding debt anywhere. I was able to kind of recoup that, but we were already up the creek in that sense. Wow. So when I got back from being married, we came from the Bahamas back to Toronto. I was in a bad position.
Wow. So let me ask you this, because that was, almost 3 years ago, 2+ years ago.
Yeah. 2 years.
That event happens. And I just kind of want to give people a sense of like mindset shifts, right? So that event happens. At that moment, what's going through your mind? Are you like, fuck, my life is over? Are you like, where are you at that moment?
Yeah, I was, there was so much transition going on at the time. There's a saying that when one door closes, another one opens, but it sucks being stuck in the hallway. And I didn't know what was next for me. And the toughest part, honestly, was being a father. And the reason for that, and I didn't know why, but the reason I dug into afterwards, I started researching like, what are the pillars of happiness and stuff like that, because I was simply unhappy at the time. And I knew if I didn't kind of start nipping this in the butt, I was going to spiral into depression. I started getting, suicidal thoughts and all that kind of like stupid stuff. And, which I never thought, when people used to talk about those kind of things, I'm like, you're crazy. You should stay over there. But I started thinking about, and like for me personally, so I started looking into, the pillars of happiness. And one of the pillars is perceived control. And it makes perfect sense. That's why I'm an entrepreneur, so I can control my time, be able to do what I want, when I want, wherever I want. Well, when a child comes into play, that goes out the window to some capacity. So I was, for the first few months, I was starting to resent my daughter. And I'm like, this is crazy. I got to like change this up because I can't go on resenting my daughter. So I looked into it and I'm like, well, I can bank on not controlling the hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. because that's the time she's awake. But what I can control is the time before that or the time after that. And because I'm naturally an early riser, I just started to wake up at 4 a.m. And I woke up at 4 a.m. till I don't know, probably like 18 months I did it. And from the hours of 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. until the time she woke up, I just became vigilant with morning rituals and being as incredibly like effective during that time period and productive. And I got to a point where I could produce more in those 4 hours than I could in, 2 days of like my normal working. So I became just a huge evangelist of morning rituals and did that for quite a long time. And, so that when everything was spinning, one of the biggest things is try to get control over something, try to get certainty over something.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just those morning rituals. That was the first step. And there's just small little incremental steps to kind of work my way back up.
Amazing. Now, you said, that was the lowest point to date, right? So say, I guess it's kind of like a hypothetical, but you've experienced big failure since? Like, have you had like another...
So
a big event since or something like that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, on a personal, on a professional level, when you do what you love and you serve an audience that you love, anything that comes your way, you see it more as like an opportunity or like just an obstacle. You don't see it like the be all end all. Like I've had, things blow up in my face that in my last business, I would be like, I'm done. I'm walking away. But this is like, I'm going to overcome this or watch I'm going to fix this and that kind of stuff. So, so from a mindset perspective, that's a little different. So it's hard to say what I've struggled with and what I haven't, but definitely, stuff when you're an entrepreneur, when you get married to somebody, that's difficult. When you get married to an entrepreneur, that's another layer of complexity. When you get married to an entrepreneur with a child, that's a whole nother beat, right? So, from a relationship perspective, there's always, tension on that front. I think like Navy SEALs, the like 90 or 95% of Navy SEALs marriages end up in divorce. And I don't know what the statistics are for entrepreneurs, but man, I have a lot of good friends who are entrepreneurs with, that are recently divorced and stuff like that. So, that's always, top of mind, that trying to stay on top of a relationship. Health is a big thing too.
Yeah.
Start focusing on your business. And my weight has always been a roller coaster all my life. And, that's an area of focus right now. I'm in significantly better shape than I was before, but that's when you start focusing on one thing, something starts to fall back, and you have to start focusing on that. And it's always a kind of a balancing technique.
It's interesting. I have this conversation a lot with a lot of people, but I think what most entrepreneurs do, they compartmentalize, just kind of like you said, where it's like business, family, health, right? Everything is this. What we, like me and my brother at SatoriPrime, we're always trying to get people to, it's like, there's no separation. It's one, right? So everything is life. It's like, everything is this. And when I was talking to Kevin Wilkie the other day, he said one of the smartest things I've ever heard. And he said that he wished he would have known that, like, if he wanted exponential growth in his business, he had to grow here.
Yeah,
he had to grow himself, right? If he wanted a breakthrough in his health and fitness, he had to grow here. And it's all, when you're like perceived control, at the end of the day, that control comes from your inside.
Sure.
Right? And like, that's what you have. The only thing I think you can control is your reaction to things. Like, life is always going to come at you, but you have the ability to, like, in that August 12th moment, you reacted a certain way. My estimation would be that today that reaction would be very, very different than it was back then.
My life is virtually unrecognizable from where it was 2 years ago, from a health perspective, from a relationship perspective. Financially, I'm not where I need to be per se, but I've never felt wealthier, like bar none. I would do Mastermind Talks for free. That's why, I've focused just doing one event a year. I don't usually, when you start seeing success with something, the natural inclination is to, I'll do 2 events, or I'll do more events, or I'll do bigger events, and like that kind of stuff. And I'm really about quality over quantity. And no, I'm definitely in a good place.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about Mastermind Talks, because people just need to know what this is. So before we do that, the story with Tim Ferriss in the books, 84 grand. So now you're like broke on your ass, have no idea what the fuck you're going to do. You got to come up with $84,000. How do you run that by the wife?
So, happy wife, happy life, they say.
Yeah.
So, no,
honey, by the way.
Well, the thing is I always knew, like, if you don't stretch yourself in life, life and business will find a way to stretch you, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
it's the whole like do what is difficult when it is easy. And every time I've stretched myself, I've always found a way to kind of follow through. Like in my last business, my ticketing business, the reason, I mean, we grew significantly faster than any of our competitors. Some of our competitors are 20, 25 years old, and we were just blowing by them. And the reason is because every month I was putting the company on the line to grow. So for me, what happened was I was waking up at 4 a.m. Tim is a good friend of mine. I've known him actually for about 3 years. And one of the best book marketers I know, he had a book coming out called The 4-Hour Chef. And his book was the first book to ever be banned from Barnes & Noble. And he found this out about 2-3 weeks before he was launching. The reason for it is because he was the first author to publish through Amazon. And Barnes & Noble wanted to make an example of Tim. So Tim had to scramble and did these things, decided to do these book bundles, where if you bought 10 books, you'd get these bonuses. If you bought 50 books, maybe he'd do a webinar with you. He had this Hail Mary package that he didn't think anybody would buy, which was if you bought 4,000 books, he'd do 2 speaking engagements. And at the time, I was one of the first people to see this blog post because he just posted it. It was 4 a.m. And I emailed a friend in Canada who runs these huge events, like 2,000-3,000 people, bringing like Malcolm Gladwell and Bill Clinton and all these like big names. And I'm like, he could easily move the books. And Tim doesn't speak that often, right? So it's a great opportunity. The minute I clicked send on that email, I said, it's a great opportunity for anybody because, again, Tim doesn't speak often. I don't know what his speaker fee is, but, if you take that package divided by 2, it's $42,000. I'm like, I have a feeling it's probably more than that. So I emailed Tim and I said, you know what, I'll take the package. And I had to raise $84,000 in about 2 days, which is something my last business I built purely on credit cards, as we kind of touched on. And I was raised that you never ask for any handouts. So I had to overcome the limiting belief of like asking for a favor, going backwards against the wall. So I had to do it. So I reached out to 3 people that morning, 3 friends of mine. The first one was interested, but wanted to talk the numbers. He's just a number-driven guy, and I'm like, I don't have time for numbers right now. I need the money. So
I'll come back to you.
The next guy, the second guy was totally cool with fronting the money. He wants to talk about like a business partnership. So I'm like, cool, let's talk about it. And the third guy just lent me the money. Just said, you know what, we'll talk about it later. Don't worry. Here's the money, and gave me a draft that day or the following day.
Wow.
So that's how I was the proud owner of 4,000 new books and 2 speaking engagements. And then Mastermind Talks kind of evolved into that.
Amazing. So then you speak to Tim, right? And you have to, you're like, okay, now you need an event. And you had no event and nothing in place.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so it was actually Tim, because I would have probably dragged it on forever because I was terrified. I've never done it before. I never thought I'd be in the event space. And after an epic fail to some degree of my last business, you become pretty trigger shy, right? Yeah. So Tim is like, so I bought the books end of November 2012. And I think he emailed me maybe like this early December, and he's like, well, let's pick a date. So I was like, shit, okay, let's pick a date. So I picked May 22nd and 23rd, which is a week before my birthday. The reason I did before my birthday is historically, my birthdays have always been like the most depressing day of the year because I feel like I haven't accomplished enough as an individual. And Mark Zuckerberg's birthday is like a week before mine. And I'm always like comparing every time it's his birthday, it's all over the news and stuff like that. Like, it's a $100 billion business. Mine's like 7 million. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I'm such a loser. So decided to do the event a week before my birthday and procrastinated a while to tell people about it because I didn't want to put it out there. Finally pulled the trigger and I should have launched it in January. I think I officially launched it in late February, early first week of March. So giving me hardly any time and was blown away at the response. I didn't have the money to pay speakers, so I did a $25,000 prize for the best talk as voted by the audience. Reached out to a bunch of friends who thankfully are speakers like Ryan Holiday and AJ Jacobs and James Altucher and Mark Echo and all these guys, and they came out to support, which I'm forever grateful for. And yeah, I mean, from what I originally thought the event would look like to what it was the time I stepped on stage, I probably pivoted like 800 times. But it turned out to be, I'm a firm believer that ignorance and confidence can go a long way when you're an entrepreneur. And because of that, the event was rather unconventional, and that's what people enjoyed about it. So that's I guess the the story of Mastermind Talks, how the first event came to be.
Ignorance on fire.
Exactly. That's
it's
good.
Funny, like,
ignorance on fire.
I keep trying to, it's like that beginner's mind, right? When you do something and you have no freaking clue of what it's supposed to look like or how it goes or whatever.
Dude, as entrepreneurs, if we knew how difficult this would be, we would never do it. You know what I mean? Like that ignorance. And like Cameron Harrell has this thing called the entrepreneurial roller coaster. And he talks about it in his book, Back Pocket CEO, but he also did a guest blog post on Tim Ferriss's blog. And he talks about there's this there's these terms, but it's like to a T, this is exactly what we go through. And again, if we knew what goes into being an entrepreneur, there's so many times that I'm like, man, it'd be nice to get like a steady paycheck. You know what I mean? Just like, I have to show up 9 to 5 and just do the grind. But no, thankfully I love what I do now, and I love, who I get to serve. But it's pretty common in the entrepreneurial community that people are like, I would take a job if if I could support my family. So most of us are unemployable. That's the problem. I have no skill set, right?
Exactly. But I it's interesting. I chose to be unemployable, and I don't know. I feel like even those guys that tell me that, I think they think that in theory because it's always like that grass is greener effect.
Sure.
But none of us would survive in an office. Are you kidding me? Like the first time the boss would be like, hey, I need this on my desk by Thursday. You'd be like, fuck you, I'm out of here.
Dude, that was actually one of the scariest parts of hitting rock bottom is that I knew, and my wife knew this as well, that I'd rather live in a shelter than work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like once you taste freedom, man, there's no going back.
No. I mean, my moment, and you had the same moment, like my moment was her grandparents, my wife's grandparents are here. Someone knocks at the door like 8-something p.m. and we're going on a full expense paid trip through this company that we were working for to speak in the Bahamas. Mm. And like, I couldn't afford it. I mean, I could, so her grandparents end up coming with us to watch our kid. But that night, I get a knock on the door, and it's like, are you Ilan Ferdman? I'm like, yes, I am. And it's like, you've been served. And they served us our foreclosure papers. So, like, my wife is standing there. Her grandparents are standing there. And I remember closing the door, and I knew they were right there. So they heard, and I'm thinking to myself, I have to turn around right now and face these people. And, like, all I want to do is, like, be 70 feet under the ground right now. But that was my moment. That was, like when you said, that was the moment where it's like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, I can't feed my family. I can't pay for this house. Am I going to get a job and just like support? And I was like, I can't do that. And it happened so fast, but right before I turn around, like that was that moment. And I was like, I'm making this work. Like,
I think one of the lessons from this is that as entrepreneurs, we should not go to Bahamas, because that's where I found out. I was literally like 3 days away from bankruptcy when I was in the Bahamas getting married, and you got served in the Bahamas. Like, it is,
and you took your mastermind to the Bahamas. What are you thinking?
I know. Well, I bought property on the island. I love the Bahamas. I love the people and stuff like that. But that was a huge fear of mine. Like, I didn't even know if I could pay for the wedding, and I was 3 days. I was 3 days out, had no cash coming in, and we still owed money on the wedding. So I was hoping they would invoice me after the wedding. Yeah. And I was biting my nails. I'm like, please don't send me an invoice for the dinner or something, because I have no money. But
Amazing. Yeah. Damn you, Bahamas. No, I'm just kidding. Man, that story, it's interesting. I share it today. It almost feels like it happened to someone else. But interestingly enough, in talking to Jayson and talking to many other entrepreneurs, as you've heard on the podcast here, we've all had that moment. We've all had that moment where it wasn't looking so pretty. It was looking really bad, actually. And we had to make a choice. And that choice was to follow our heart and continue on this journey, or walk, put the tails between our legs and walk in the other direction. So interestingly enough, you might be at that point in your business right now, where everything kind of is amassing and not looking so pretty. And if I could urge you to do anything, it's stay the course. Stay the course. And to do that, I want to share with you, if you haven't heard me talk about it before, our 10-day challenge video series. And one of the lessons in there is actually a lesson about staying the course. It's free, and we've made the link easier for you to check it out. It's SatoriPrime.com /10day. So SatoriPrime.com/10day. Head over there, opt in, get those 10 free video series, and get to work on an area of your life that really matters most to you. So if it's your business, I promise you'll get tools in these next 10 days that will have you creating incredible results in that business. All right, till we meet again in part 2 with Jayson Gaignard, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my eyes and my aching thoughts? Did you walk through walls till you had to grow?